Hey everyone, my name is Perico and welcome back to a new video. Today I actually want to pick up on a game I've sworn myself to never make a video about. But as things turn out to be, I did decide to create this video and talk about a topic that most players of Dark Orbit will be familiar with. And yes, for those that have the ability to read video titles already know it's about bots. But it won't be the obligatory bots are stupid video with proof of people botting, but I more so want to talk about a few things revolving around bots, such as what they are, how they most likely functions, and therefore debunk some of the common myths about the ease of banning them and the accused inability of Bigpoint to fix their game. But before I get into the video, I want to make three things absolutely and utterly clear. No, I am not a bot user myself, and I will remove any comment about that, so please don't accuse me of being a bot myself, because I am not, I have proof of that, and yeah, basically Bigpoint could also check my account. And no, I do not support bot users either. I will however try my best to use background knowledge, things I've read upon, and of course common sense and logic to explain some of the things that I bring up, so do not take anything for 100% granted and true, but take it more as a could most likely be. But without further ado, let's get started, shall we? First things first, what are bots? For those that have been playing the game for less than an hour, or just those that sit alone in their gates for 24/7, a bot is a program that makes several tasks autonomous. In the terms of Dark Orbit, it's shooting NPCs and collecting bonus boxes. Sounds simple enough. What's interesting though is how they function. Some of people who have been hunting bots may have noticed these bots seemingly only run away if a player is shooting them, but never the NPC that is attacking them, or some of them run away when hostile players are near the proximity. Well, this is because how bots can function and what information they can process. You see, a bot likes like a browser itself. It locks the player through the main site and immediately locks you into the map. While doing so, it will download the .svf file and therefore also the information that's given to them, such as the position of windows, location of enemies, and bonus boxes, and the ability to distinguish between the player and NPC. In other words, a bot can process way more information than a player ever could. For instance, a bot can see the difference between an enemy player and an NPC, despite both being outside of the visible range. That's because the game also distinguishes between player and NPC on the minimap and therefore also pretty much anywhere else. So a bot will most likely run away when a player attacks them because the game distinguishes and sends the differences between the two attack types to the bot, which can make use of the information that is given to them. A bot will also run away if a friendly player is attacking them, because it's also a PvP act, and as I told you already, the game differentiates between an NPC attack and a player attack. But let's get to the last point of what is a bot thing. Because there's one more type of bot, which I am not too familiar with, but, you know, I will still try to explain as good as I can. We have overlay bots, which kinda access the browser and the SVF file that is in the game browser itself, which then can process the data. It is more safe for the user because they don't have to type in their login data into the bot window, so you know there's no potential of someone stealing their account. But it's less secure ban-wise because it's still a third-party program that accesses this site directly. So if that makes sense. A client bot is way more secure banning-wise, but less secure account-wise, and vice versa the other way around. And this brings us to the next topic. Why doesn't Bigpoint do anything about bots? Some with a bit of programming background might have already known this, but you know, you could have guessed they aren't able to. But if you think sharply, you can guess and realize that something like bots is treated like a browser. At least a bot that opens the game in their own window and client, so it makes it hard for Bigpoint to make a prevention tool. They can use common logic and basic detection methods, such as analyzing the data of a player or even access and block external functions. However, there's a problem with that. Now you may ask yourself, but isn't that exactly what I need? And the answer is, no, you actually don't. By blocking external functions, you also potentially block harmless functions that still access the game or the browser in a way. It's like plugins or an overlay, a game booster, game recording software, or just any Windows function that currently accesses the browser. So of course Bigpoint could go ahead and whitelist all of these, but we get new plugins and software every day, making it nearly impossible for Bigpoint to keep track of those things, and therefore making it inefficient to use. Well, as you may know, we had a ban wave once with several thousand of players were banned. Of course, many of people felt victorious because, you know, of course bots are banned, you know, let's be happy. But, as it turns out, it was a false alarm, because a Windows function has actually fondled around with the detection system, and Bigpoint had to unban them. Or, well, to legally not get into trouble, they had to unban them. Well, then the last thing that seems to be left is the basic player analyzation tool, and why don't we use that? Well, for both legal and technical reasons, it's as equally inefficient. Someone who's been playing a ton of Dark Orbit or has been sitting in the same map for several hours is obviously suspect and most likely guilty of using a bot. But from a legal perspective, it could also just be a group of people in the same housing who have been playing the one after another, making it effectively impossible to win a court case in the scenario of one happening. Well, it's not impossible, but likely the judge will see faulty patterns in behavior, but you get the point. It's not as easy as you think it is. So to collect everything into one single pile, Bigpoint cannot collect enough proof for the use of a bot. The technical abilities of a browser in a Flash game are limited and are only collected to do that much. Smooth transitions to the next point. How do we make it impossible or hard for bots to exist? Well, we need a separate client actually. Well, we have technical limitations in the browser game. We cannot attach an effective anti-cheat, we cannot attach a different third-party program detector, something like that, and we cannot effectively use the computer of the person. In other words, trying to go against bots right now, with the game being in a browser game, is effectively impossible, and we can ban them on a constant basis, but it's going to become really difficult later on. So we need a prevention, so Bigpoint both doesn't have to spend time manually banning people, and you kinda get the point. In a separate client, we could do several things. You could install and attach a necessary anti-cheat program, which removes the client from the process list and hides it in the memory. You can run regular checks of faulty game files, making it impossible to change the aspect of the game without making the game detect an attempt to change the game around. You could also give the game a tool to scan third-party programs that access the game. In other client, or, in other words, the client could differentiate between the client itself and, of course, a bot that's currently trying to run the game. And, of course, we could go even further and check the memory of the computer for malicious attempts, effectively separating a recording or a game booster from a bot or hack tool. So lastly, a computer client is way more efficient to run and make use of the computer's resources, so it would be much easier for someone who has a weak PC to run the game smoothly, and there comes a lot of advantages to use an external client. As example, it makes it virtually impossible for a player to cheat and bot the game. It's never going to be 100% hacker-proof, because no game is really hacker and cheat-proof, but you can prevent the common spreading of bots and make it really hard for a bot creator to make a tool that, first of all, goes around the anti-cheat, then also tries to bypass the detection, and, then again, if even a bot exists, it could be terminated and we could pretty much make it possible to bots go offline once they are going online, so yeah, that's another advantage. Okay, next I want to debunk some of the player suggestions and common ideas we have been having in the respective talk about topics against bot users, and well, I want to talk about them and why and how they do not work. Okay, by removing a pushing penalty, you make it possible for players to do exactly that, push without being punished for it. And therefore we have to fix this problem again, and this might actually bring up the botting problem again, which then causes a big loop in order to, make it quote-unquote possible to not have to deal with bots. But yeah, you can already see how this is not working out. Next, we also had the idea of a CAPTCHA, and it also won't work. We have bots in the internet already that can easily solve CAPTCHAs, and the function could be introduced into nowadays bots because you kinda can get the code anywhere. So with that, it would only annoy players and not the bots themselves. So yeah, it would also be kinda stupid to add. Well, lastly, diminishing returns is equally useless, and here's why. First of all, being more than 1 or 2 hours on the same map without having notable change to another map for a longer period of time has a high chance of triggering it. So you could basically bypass that system by changing the map with the bot and doing that multiple times a day, so you will never really get detected in that. Besides, it doesn't stop bots, and if you think, well, they get less so that's enough, well, they don't. They will still get more than the average player because they don't care if they get less. And, well, aside from that, a bot is contemplated to take the burden and annoyance of player away, so the only one who you're going to truly annoy are the players themselves. Then there has been ideas about annoying bots, like, a mine that drops when an NPC is killed, or exploding NPCs, regular bombardments of the map, etc, etc. We had those suggestions all around. No, bots are not going to be annoyed, and they will never really be truly annoyed, and the only ones who are going to really pull the bad card here are the players once again. Okay, lastly, and this is truly the last point, this is not supposed to be a pro-bot argument, and well, what gives people the reason to use bots? Well, it's kind of simple really. Over the years we have received so many changes, additions, which require a ton of farming, time and money investment, and even worse by now the gap between high-end players and the mid-tier player is way too high, making anyone below a certain point to be frustrated with the system. No, I as a player do not want to get killed 20 times a day doing a quest, so in other words, the next best effective method to get a good but having to endure ridiculously low drop rates of scrap, low amounts of uridium in the lower tiers, and having rare drops to find is unfortunately a bot, which makes the strain of which takes the strain away of having to farm myself. So in other words, making bots less common to begin with is to improve the drop rates and the farming time that you have in the game. Yes, I'm serious, don't give me a 1% drop chance of scrap on a Morden or Salmon, because I don't want that. It's the most used resource and is the least one dropped, so making it 25% would not hurt and would make it a lot better to achieve things. With that being said, however, I hope I made you understand the mechanic behind bots just a little better, and I hope people actually start understanding and don't immediately seek out to dislike or write down a hate comment, and I will hope to see you in the next video. You can express yourself in the topics. I will look at both of them for a while because I will post it in the German and English forums, and yeah, till then, peace.